If you're listening to this podcast and you've never headed to patreon.com/dissectingthe80s, well, you should go do that because there are more than 20 hours of bonus content, including great stuff that just came out in December, like our Footloose live episode that was thought to be lost and then was found thanks to a little hard drive reconnaissance I was doing. There's also a really fun commentary for A Muppet Family Christmas, which is the Muppet Family Christmas is for anyone on Patreon, and the Footloose episode is for those at the $5 tier. At the $5 tier, you get a quarterly bonus episode and all sorts of fun stuff. And in case you're unfamiliar with Patreon, you get a custom RSS feed, so you can listen to it in whatever podcast player you like. You don't have to use, a new app or anything like that. And when you sign up, you get access to everything all at once. So you can go check out all the old episodes that we've posted there, the previous commentary tracks, and go read through the old Bag of Soup emails, which is our monthly newsletter. Plus, you get the first 78 episodes of the show for the second you sign up as well. So patreon.com/dissectingthe80s. If you like this show, there's more of it out there that you can get for a small monthly fee, and you help support the creation of this show and keep it going. Welcome to Dissecting the 80s. I am Tripp Lano, one half of the Mega Podcasting Powers, and with me, as always, is a fellow Agatha Christie nerd joining me on this accidental canonuary feature, the Macho Andrew
Lano. And yeah, I was not expecting this to be a canon fair, but
no,
hey,
I had no idea. I think we were supposed to do this in like the first year of the podcast.
I don't think it was the first year, but it was in the first, in the beginning stages. I was like, oh, I'm assuming, yes, it was. It was before I had worked at a high school because I would have fought for it harder. But we were supposed to do it, and then we realized there wasn't a digital copy of it anywhere.
Yeah, you couldn't rent it, you couldn't bootleg it, you couldn't buy it. It just didn't exist. And what's interesting to me is this movie, I think, is now out in better circulation because it was put out on Blu-ray by one of those more boutique Blu-ray shops that have popped up for these kind of titles. But the version that is available through my local library on Hoopla, which is a great streaming service if you got a library card and have access to it, I recommend checking it out. If you like schlocky stuff, there's plenty of it there. This transfer is abysmal.
Yeah, it's also I watch a lot of things with closed captioning on. Whoever did the closed captioning, it feels like they were in a hurry and had three fingers.
I'm guessing that it was somebody involved with Canon in 1989, and it was just yeah, whatever he said. But it's fine.
But it's the formatting, which sounds weird. It's
okay.
So if someone says I said don't, the caption will be I said DON', and then the next caption will have a T at the top, and then most of the next line, and it was just for most of the lines, that's how it was.
I wonder if that's Hoopla or the particular movie.
I'd say it could be any number of people's fault, but
yeah. Well, anyway, we watched 1989's version of Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, which is titled 10 Little Indians, which is the last time we're going to say that phrase on this podcast. But we watched it, so you know what that means.
We gotta go back. We gotta go dissect the 80s. It's your Agatha Christie mystery. Something's good about your Agatha Christie mystery.
When the mega powers explode.
I'm talking about the 80s. Oh, yeah.
Great Scott.
Cream of the crop. Oh, yeah.
Mega powers, yeah.
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
So I think the original reason for wanting to do this was probably, oh, hey, there's a Donald Pleasance version of And Then There Were None, which is a book we both read and enjoyed.
I didn't actually. So my first experience with it was back when I worked at a high school for a year as a costume designer, and they went to the Thespian Society, I think it's called. It's like a high school theater conference. And if anyone listening is familiar with the American College Theater Festival, it's basically the same thing. It's just for high schoolers. So they'll send not reviewers, but critics, I guess, to high school shows. and they will offer feedback after, and then they will select a handful of shows to be performed at the conference for everybody. So like the really good ones you get to see when you're there. And
okay.
So it's high school, so like grain of salt, really good ones, but really good high school theater, whatever that means for you.
I mean, look, everything should be graded against its peers, right?
Yeah.
You grade a high school performance against other high school performances. A really good high school performance stands out. I think that's as true in high school theater as it is in high schoal sports.
Exactly.
It's like you see talent. It's raw, but it's still talent.
Yeah. And then you also get like people like me who are actual like theater, like aspiring or like burgeoning theater professionals who like know what they're doing. So you get like interesting stuff. I
mean, I watched 8, 6, however many of your shows when you were in high school.
I was in 15 shows in high school. I don't know which one. I don't know how many you saw.
Well, I was talking about the ones officially through the school. I thought it was like 2.
Yeah, no, those
year.
were
More than
they were 15 through the school. So it was probably you saw at least all 4 musicals.
Yeah, I saw the 4 musicals, and I think maybe one. I think the number's more like 5 or 6 because I was in college at the time.
Yeah,
so
you probably saw a handful of the like fall or spring plays.
And I came to some of your college stuff too, and some beyond that. But it's like I would say every time you watch one of these, you see a handful of performers that you're like, oh, that person has a bunch of talent, and then you find out typically those are the people who are wanting to seriously pursue this. There's another tier of people that are like better than they have any right to be, but clearly are just having a good time, and then you have everybody else who's just working hard
here to have fun,
which is fine. Yeah, I'm not. I say this with zero criticism of anybody doing anything. I hope that's obvious, but so it's like most of the stuff that we watched.
The world needs community theater actors. Like
but also just like I'm trying to be complimentary here. Is like most of the stuff I watched was enjoyable. It's like, is it the best singer you ever heard? No, of course not. Like it's a bunch of high school kids. But is there usually like one very talented singer that you're like, oh, I wish that person did more singing? Yeah, of course. You know, it's like I had genuine laughs.
I was not being derogatory when I said the world needs community theater act. Like there are tiers for everybody.
Right. So that's all to say is like while I think it would be a little odd for your average adult person to go see a high school production of anything with no connection to it, not totally. Who gives a shit? Go see theater. It's good to do that. Well, when it's safe. It's obviously
yes.
May or may not be
asterisk.
Do so right now. But yeah, anyway, that's all I'm saying. Is like I think it's good to have a good robust arts program. So high school theater, I never was involved in it, but I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. So my first exposure to, and then there were none, was a performance that was invited to the conference, and so the set was giant. It was because the original book and the original play that this film is based on takes place on an island, which I think is a better closed circuit.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think setting wise, I think it's spookier. Although obviously,
we can talk about that as we go through. I actually did kind of like the setting change here, but I had other quibbles related to it. So.
I didn't hate the Savannah. I just thought it was a weird choice. But so my first exposure was a high school production, and when the ending came, I genuinely was like, because I didn't see it coming.
Yeah. I think the version, and I meant to look this up as I was reading.
The book is different than the play.
I haven't read the book in a long time. Actually, watching this made me want to reread it because I haven't read Agatha Christie in a long, long time, and I really enjoy her stuff. Reading her came after reading Sherlock Holmes for me, which is not really the same thing, but there's some stylistic elements that overlap a little bit.
Strong mysteries.
Hers, I think, are a little more fun because it's the sort of parlor mystery. It's a different type of thing.
Yeah, there's an energy.
There is, yeah, and it's the same as we talked about a lot in Clue. Is like both of us enjoy that kind. It lends itself to a particular type of shenanigans, which can be played for comedy, played for scares, you can do a lot of stuff with it.
Yeah, a madcap energy.
Yeah, which is why I love Knives Out so much because it's it's like just a warm bath for me. Is it's really strong actors, limited sets in this intense environment. And
swinging for the fences.
Yeah, and that's a particularly exemplary version because Rian Johnson is a very talented director, despite what Star Wars fans would have you think. And that movie is beautiful because it's just you have a bunch of people in a pot and the temperature is set to high, and they don't know it because they got in when the water was cold from the tap. And by the end of the movie, they're all boiled. You know, it's like, oh shit, everything's going wrong.
Is the sequel a continuation of the story, or is it just like in the same universe?
My understanding is it's sequels, plural, in this Netflix deal.
Oh, it's a Netflix deal.
Yeah, it's going to be further adventures of Benoit Blanc, but not necessarily relating to that family. Like, I think that is Benoit Blanc story.
He's the new Hercule Poirot, basically.
Yes, and my only thing is, like, I hope they figure out a way to bring Noah Segan and Lakeith Stanfield in some capacity, even if it's just like small cameos where he calls them on the phone.
Yeah.
Because those two as the cops were so freaking good.
I know. I liked that. They could be his like sort of Watson-y kind of guys.
Yeah, I would love to see them in there. And again, it doesn't have to be a lot, but see them in there. Speaking of, this has turned into a Knives Out podcast, which is fine. The Ana de Armas, who plays the housekeeper,
I like her a lot.
She's great in that movie, but I hadn't really seen her in a ton of other things. And she's in the new Bond movie, and she has, which I think you should check out. Actually, it's way too damn long, but it's
they're
very
all
good.
Long.
This one is 2 hours and 43 minutes.
Why?
I mean, so if you skip the song, which I like Billie Eilish, not ashamed to admit that. I think this song stinks.
I like Billie Eilish. I don't think she makes sense for a Bond song.
Yeah, I was reading something about people saying there was some documentary about her that came out on Apple TV, and she was recording this song with her brother at the time, and she like started to do a version where she was really belting it, and then she was like, I can't do that, people make fun of me. And she did this version, which is like very Billie Eilish, sort
breathy,
of spooky whisper singing. Yeah. And it's like, shit, man, you should have belted it. It would have been the right tone for this. But so if you skip that and you skip the credits, you're down to like the 2.5 hour mark, which is still too long, but it's at least manageable. Yeah,
because aren't Fast and the Furious movies too long too?
So
like, what is it with like dude bro movies?
My favorite list of movies of the year always includes the trailer for whichever new Fast and the Furious came out, because the trailer's delightful. 3-4 minutes, totally insane. I laugh my ass off. I will rewatch the trailers like just as a little, like a short film.
They're fun.
And I try to watch the movie, and it's like, I don't want to watch Vin Diesel stand there and talk like this for 17 minutes. It's like, I don't care. Stop talking. It is nonsense. Get to the silliness.
Yeah, I want. Ironically, given how terrible the actual attraction is, I want the theme park attraction version of the movie. Give it to me 5 to 10 minutes, make it all the exciting fun parts, and then get me out of there.
I want it to be the Canon Films version, which is like 100 minutes of tight action and cool shit, which is like
that obviously would be great too, but
yeah. But anyway, Ana de Armas is in the new Bond, and she is this real, incredible ass kicker in it, and it's really fantastic. She's a very short sequence, but even in this short amount of time, you're like, oh man, why aren't you in the movie more? like literally, this is like the mildest of spoilers, so I guess the previous thing could have been too. But literally at the end of the scene, like her and Bond shake hands, and he's like, I hope to see you again sometime, and she's like, yeah, me too.
Does she not?
And then he leaves, and then she's not in the movie anymore.
God damn it!
And I'm like, I was like, son of a bitch! Like,
because isn't this Craig's last Bond?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So it was just like, oh man! Like, hopefully Ana de Armas will see James Bond again, but perhaps portrayed by somebody else. Anyway, she's great. Knives Out is great. I love parlor mysteries, which is what the point of this was. But so I'm like, all right. So you're telling me I got an Agatha Christie play already in the book with Donald Pleasance, one of my favorite all-time hams. He's got his energy, and it's perfect for something like this, I think. And I'm like, yeah, I got to sit through a Frank Stallone and a bunch of nobodies. But I was hopeful that this would be like, this is like a very specific reference, but when we were growing up, it was either middle or high school. Speaking of community theater, there was a professional theater near us.
People's Light Theater?
Yeah, was that the name of it? Yes, it was. Yeah, so we would go once a year, maybe
pretty much
twice
once a year. Sometimes it was every other, but for the most part, once a year. There was some play. They were like, everyone get on a bus and bring a sandwich in a bag.
Yeah. Everyone get on a bus and bring a sandwich in a bag. That really is the field trip mantra, isn't it?
Yeah.
I never thought about it that way. That's very funny. But so
Bring a cold sandwich in a brown paper bag.
A brown paper bag, yeah, and then you can throw it away there. So we would go to these plays, and I always really enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed, anybody who was a student probably can relate to enjoying just getting out of class for a bit. Yeah. But I always like going to see a play, so I was always excited about that.
It's a professional theater, so.
Yeah, exactly. But what was always interesting in those performances to me, you get your little playbill, you flip through it while you're waiting for the play to start. And there was often one or two actors, never more than two, who had legitimate Broadway experience. And sometimes it was a person who had a dozen or more performances on Broadway, but now they're older and they're just looking for steady acting work, and they're playing older characters, which there are, not that many of in any play or movie.
You're not allowed to be old.
You're not allowed to be old, especially an old woman, unless you are an old woman.
Yes.
Peter, you're the Spider-Man now, or whatever. Yeah.
Grand Aunt May.
Yeah. But so every once in a while you'd see, one of these older actors coming through town, and, they're there with much younger people who are getting their start. And this is something I've talked about in my personal life a lot. Certain music venues, and I think this applies for theaters too, are for like either side of the parabola. It's either people on their way up or people on their way down.
Yes.
And so they're at the same comparative level, but one has many more years of experience. But so you'd get, younger, a lot of child actors or just younger actors, people in their 20s or something who are, working and getting paid, and that's great. And then you'd have this older actor doing the same thing, is looking for steady work and all that business. That's the energy I got out of this movie. Is like, you got what they thought were a few up and comers, asterisk around Frank Stallone, because obviously.
So I didn't realize. So I only know Frank Stallone as the guy who sang "Far From Over." Is that what it's called? I used it. I literally used it in my pageant 2 years ago. That was when I came out, because we could pick our own music to come out in our like camp wear, and I picked that because I was dressed like an 80s counselor. So it was that like ba da 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 da, and so I came out to that, and I just never knew that Frank Stallone, because he was a singer. My brain was like, he can't possibly. I was like, he's a singer, not an actor, so he can't possibly be related to Sylvester Stallone. That would be a stupid thing to think. And then I find out he is also an actor and couldn't be more bargain bin at the dollar store Sylvester Stallone if he tried.
Well, the worst part about this is not only is he bargain bin Sylvester Stallone, he's also Delaware Smith, the bargain bin version of Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it's weird.
I assume the reason for that is because it's 89, so Last Crusade is filming at this point, I think.
And
it comes out that year, yeah.
So Indy's a thing at this point, right?
Oh yeah. That's the third and final indie movie as far as anyone's concerned. So yeah, I think that's what it is. Is like, oh, we got room for a Delaware Smith in here, so just like put this hat on.
I also kept thinking that the old lady who wasn't married, I kept thinking she was Eileen Brennan from Clue, Mrs. Peacock.
Oh, she does look like Eileen
in the wides
Brennan,
when she's like being carried and like in her crazy outfits. I was like, God. Now I'm like, Donald Pleasance and Eileen Brennan would be like exactly enough prestige to elevate this.
Even with it being not Eileen Brennan, I think that actress is one of the more entertaining parts of this movie, but that she just doesn't get enough to do.
No, but my biggest problem with this movie is that there really isn't any energy. It's a fucking dirge.
Yeah.
Like someone screams and then one person turns around in a group of people and then everyone's like, should we go check it out? And then they all like mall walk over there. Like,
yeah.
Put some pep in your step. There's a murderer.
Yeah. So let's start going through this. The other thing I do want to say, I guess at the top, and then there were none is what they've called this book for a long time here, but it's had several racial slurs in its title. Agatha Christie came from a different time, but
this book was published in 1939. So
yeah. But I was reading, and I don't know if I misinterpreted the Wikipedia line, which is very possible. But so it was originally 10 little slur for black people, and then it became 10 little slur for Native people.
Native American people.
Yes. And the Wikipedia alleges that the original title hung on in Europe until like 2000 something, which I could not believe was true, and I did not click any further. But I
think I remember reading that the original title stuck around longer than it should have overseas.
Yeah,
but I also could have been misreading that.
Yeah. Anyway, it's called And Then There Were None Now, which is fine. Like it's a better title.
It's spookier.
For this anyway. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a stronger title.
Also, I think also because that little nursery rhyme poem thing is not as common anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting too. Is like if you pick that book up now, you'd be like, "Oh, this is made up for it," as opposed to knowing it was like some cultural thing, which is interesting to me. But yeah, it's one of the. It's like as you get older, you find out that half of the things you learned as a child were deeply racist and lightly modified. Like, for example, eeny, meeny, miny, mo did not used to say catch a tiger by the toe as I learned it as a youth. And until very recently, I was like, oh yeah, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Oh, turns out that's deeply racist in its origins and they just tweaked it a little bit. But I do wonder, yeah, exactly. But I wonder if that poem has been rewritten to be something else. Like if it's, 10 Little Children or something like that.
Or like probably, I don't know if this is, even, veering further into racism or just like 10 Little Monkeys.
Yeah, as long as you were speaking about the animal and not using that as a racial slur, I think that would work just fine. But I'd just be curious.
Because I think also because this was 1989, I'm assuming that was more of a cultural touchstone because they don't go through the whole poem.
Right.
I'm pretty sure, this was like, I worked for a school 3 years ago at this point. I'm pretty sure that when they first reveal, because they're all the statues are lined up on the mantle in the play or in the book or whatever. And I'm pretty sure the woman kind of goes through them all. Maybe not all, but like a good number of them so that you have an idea of like, oh, okay. Because I don't know what's the poem. I don't know what's coming.
The other thing, too, is my memory of the book is the poem was pretty predictive as to method of death. And in the movie here, it's not quite as.
No, it is.
I didn't think all of them were 1-to-1. Am I crazy? I feel like there was 2 in the middle that were not as like one sat. I guess he sits down at the top of the hill. So I guess that's
he chopped himself in half, and then there were 6. Although he was not chopped in half, that was disappointing.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. We can go through this as we pick it up here. We start with some National Geographic nudity, which I was like, there you go, Cadden, you got to get some breasts in, and there's no other way to have breasts in this movie. Although they do have a shower scene inexplicably later, and they don't have nudity during that, which I was flat out shocked by. It is the most weirdly tame showers. Like, as soon as I saw she was in the shower and a monkey grabbed her towel, I was like, oh boy. Get ready for this. And it was 100% not what I thought it was going to become. Yeah, I was like, oh, this is like, of course, it's a canon movie. There's got to be breasts in it. And I was like, no, just the National Geographic style.
Just the stock footage.
Yeah. So we're all arriving at a rail station. We're meeting our characters.
Mm-hmm. I wish it did a better job of introducing the characters. Like, I kind of need like a doctor's bag for the doctor.
Yes,
like,
agreed.
I just need a little bit more stereotyped for me to go, got it. I
also would like,
and colors.
I know, like a more like Clue.
More like Clue. Like, I just need something because it's so beige. It's like a Thanksgiving dinner table. It's just shades of beige with a pop of green.
Especially given this is 4 years after Clue, give or take. Maybe I'm wrong with that. Maybe it's 6. Is Clue 83 or 85? I never remember.
I think Clue's 85.
Okay. So it's some years after Clue, at least 4 there. And it's like the funny version of this has been made, so now your hill is a little bit higher that you have to climb, and they just don't attempt to.
No.
The other thing I would have really liked is a voiceover of one of these letters that I don't remember what the name is. The Mr. Body character, Mr. Owen. Had sent to everyone. It would be nice had Donald Pleasance is sitting on the train holding the letter and looking out the window, right, or something like that.
You've won a trip. Blah 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 blah.
Right. Like we get all that. It's just a slightly different version of what we get in the movie, but I think it would be stronger. And then we get, the stock footage of the naked, indigenous people of Africa is fine. The scenes that follow here
are not fine.
Yeah, we have a bunch of like the click-based language thing feels like very strange and just like oh boy, look how weird these people are.
Yeah, it does not feel respectful.
Right. And then they literally run away from an airplane like they're afraid of technology, and it's just like, oh, cool, cannon. Yeah. There we are.
Where's Wakanda when you need it?
Right. We get random stunt show B-roll of a person doing like dipsy doodles in an airplane, like a biplane.
Literally so that happens, and then it's a static shot on the ground of the plane being wheeled in as if it's just taken a landing, and then he hops out, and I was like, that was a fucking theme park stunt show plane entrance.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. They just like they pushed the guy you couldn't see pushed the plane in.
Uh-huh. As the propellers slowly spin.
Yeah. So my favorite sequence of this movie is this canyon crossing. I'm getting my brains all a jumble. And they're in this sort of like rope based.
They're in a hot air balloon basket.
Yeah. But it's like a cross between a hot air balloon basket, which is a great touch point, and a bamboo animal cage. If you played the Far Cry games, it looks a lot like those. But here's my thing. This looks super cool. Really good part of, like, truly like one of the more interesting parts of the movie in terms of visual, the way it's set up and the way they film it. There is flat out no way on earth that Cannon Films is cutting me a big enough check to get into a canyon crossing cart made by the people who make Cannon Films.
Well, maybe it wasn't made by them. Maybe it's like a thing there.
It's possible.
Because apparently the only reason they changed the setting to a safari was because apparently it was cheaper to film in the outback of Africa, which just seems like that can't be correct.
Well,
to fly everyone over there to fly there alone seems like ridiculous.
Yeah, my guess is it was one of those weird tax incentive situations, which is why, Atlanta is such a film hub, because they basically subsidize it. So it's possible the African government at the time was subsidizing film production in order to get films made there.
So when you say subsidize, you mean like they paid for the plane, like helped pay the way to get there?
So it's usually not one-to-one like that. It's usually tax benefits.
Obviously, they're not giving like a check to cover it, but like it helps cover the expense of flying there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it helps cover the expense of creating a film there. It's like you get, a certain tax rate benefit of, you're taxed very low, or if you employ. My hunch is there was probably some clause about employing a certain number of locals, which is why there's that huge group of people who are
probably
the very obviously local, would be my guess is, the people we were just talking about with the click language, and then they show up a couple of times throughout the movie. My hunch is paying those folks for a day or two of work helped them make this movie more cheaply. And again, it's just, I did not do the research. I do not know. Yeah.
I just thought it was funny because I was like, the original is in a spooky seaside mansion, which like,
right.
How can you? I was like, that's got to be really cheap to find in America.
Taking a mansion mystery out of a mansion really makes it an uphill battle, and I think this movie loses a lot of its steam and energy that you brought up before because it's not in a mansion.
Yeah,
they're just as confined, but it's just not as good. Sorry.
Yeah, like at one point, Donald Pleasance is like, "We should all return to our rooms and lock our doors," and I was like, "You're in tents. Like they're canvas flaps."
Yeah.
I don't know what you think a canvas flap is doing.
Don't open your flaps for anyone this evening. It's like they could just cut it open.
Cut it open.
Just cut the strings, Donald. What are you doing? But so we have the first is Delaware Smith. He goes across. They have the camera in the car and it's bouncing all over. It was a little bit nauseating as an audience member, but I appreciated what they were doing. Yeah. So they do want like a star wipe, basically. They're like, and now everyone's crossed. It's like, yeah, you don't want to watch that 8 times. But then we see the people pop up, and it's like the scene in Star Wars
literally
with the sand people.
Literally, my boyfriend who's watching it with me, they all get down, and he goes, well, how would they get back up? And I was like, you probably have to like like it's probably a bitch to get back up. And he's like, that seems stupid. And then literally 2 seconds later, all the native people pop up and cut the rope to the basket.
It's like the freaking Tusken Raiders show up. It's like, what is happening right now?
It's exactly Tusken Raiders.
Like,
and then Donald Pleasance screams, I know. He's like, I knew something was wrong. I know natives. And I was like, natives to what, Donald? Like, you're a judge. How do you know anything?
I also like, this is the first of many times he goes full Loomis, like, Michael! He's I know you double-crossed us! And it's just delightful to see him going unhinged like that.
Mm-hmm. So the elevator basket is sabotaged, and that's what keeps them there. But, like, in the story, why did the native people do that?
Well, my assumption is Donald paid them. Sorry, spoilers for the end of the movie.
Spoiler, yeah. But, like, in the original, they're trapped on an island, and then a boat won't come until morning because it's a ferry that takes people to the island. That makes sense as to why it's a closed circuit. I need to know why the native people did that. And if Donald paid them, that's fine. Throw a line of dialogue in there at the end.
It would, exactly. It would have been very easy for him to be like, I orchestrated this entire endeavor. I paid them to sabotage the cart. You know, it's like, how easy would it have been to just do that?
Yeah.
So Frank, he's checking out the radio. We meet the cast of characters here. Actually, it's quite funny. Andrew and I both watched this through the same account. Like I had, my library has this streaming service and his doesn't, so he logged into mine, and I turned the movie on and you had watched the whole thing and then turned it off. And so I clicked play instead of play from beginning by mistake. And
so the credits were rolling.
Yes, and it's like the credits are like, you know, like it's like a 2-second clip of an actor like walking or picking something up or doing something, and then of their
but
name.
Not even like a turn and smile. It wasn't filmed for the credits. It's just a clip from the movie.
Yes. Over a very weird song, like very tonally weird song, sort of like bouncy and fun as opposed to the serious drama. But I was like, oh wow, this has like weird turn and smile opening credits, and I clicked pause. I was like, oh no, I need to watch this.
I wish those were the opening credits.
Yeah.
Too many cooks.
But so we get to meet everybody. One of them is Paul Smith, who we just saw in Dune episode we did recently.
Mm-hmm. He's the chef, right?
Yes, he is. And he's the brother that's not Sting.
Oh, he was the big brother. Got it.
Yeah. He is a massive human being.
He's like a mountain.
Just brick shithouse in every definition of that word. He's tall, he's wide, he's massive and powerful looking. The scene where he and Donald Pleasance like kind of get into it and he stands up next to Donald is incredible, because I never thought of Donald Pleasance as a particularly small man. I guess because he's like kind of heavy, you know?
Yeah, he's stocky.
Yeah, that's a great word for him. But he makes Donald Pleasance look like a little baby. Like
it looks like that scene in the birdcage when Robin Williams like bumps into the guy at the table. And he's like, fuck off. And he's like, he calls him an asshole. And he's like, it turns into Andre the Giant towering over him.
Yeah. This dude has real Andre the Giant size for sure.
Definitely.
Also, so he's cooking and the wife comes over to talk to him and she's like, why are you cooking? You know, who said you to do it? He's like, well, we got to eat and I'm a cook. And then he's got this, she brings over like a plate of meat to go with the potatoes he's been preparing. And she takes this canister of salt and just ruins all of the meat. And I was like, well, now what are you going to have for dinner, miss?
Well, just
this
one
is your
plate.
Dinner.
She just dumps salt on the one plate.
Okay, I thought she dumped it on the meat platter that she brought in.
No, because she brings in the skillet and he starts to like put meat on plates, and then she dumps one on one plate and he like picks up the meat and shakes off the salt.
So crazy.
Yeah. I also did not realize. So in movie world, these two people are not married. Like in normal movie world, these two characters are not married. So my brain was, and he's dressed like a cook. So I didn't know he like. They need this dialogue to explain that he's not supposed to be the chef, but I was like, yeah, no, he's dressed like a short order cook in a movie.
Exactly.
And then they're like, he's not supposed to be the chef, and they're married. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, agreed. Very, very strange. So we're having dinner, and we're kind of like trying to figure out what we're all doing here.
It's the dinner scene from Clue.
Yeah. Well, from all these things, really. So we have dinner, and then we go to retire to the parlor.
Well, that's where they see the 10 little figurines on the table.
Yeah, the little totems.
And it's funny because they're just like little. They look like something you would buy in like some. I don't know if you're like on a vacation in Mexico.
Yeah,
it just looks like
something
Aztec-y.
that purports to be. It purports to be handcrafted and local, and then you buy it and you look at it on the bottom and it says made in China.
Yes, exactly.
Or something like that. A mass-produced little tchotchke that is supposed to look handmade.
It's just like 10 human-shaped figures in a bowl, like in a skinny bowl, so it's 5 on each side, and they're like, "Oh, it's just like that poem." And I was like, "Well, I mean, is it just like the poem?"
Well, she starts reciting the poem, and Donald thinks she's making it up, which I thought was a funny little detail. And she's like, "No, it's the poem that's in all of our rooms. Like I checked, everyone's got a copy. It's like right by your bed."
Yeah, because I want to say in the original, it's like all the 10 figures on the mantle, and then it's a plaque under it of the poem. So it's very. I think.
Yeah. I remember there being a plaque or a framed copy of it in some capacity, not like a needlepoint, but like in that vein, like a framed.
God, that needlepoint would take forever.
Oh yeah, you'd kill yourself, I think. But so we retire to the parlor, which I really like because in the normal versions of this, it's in a mansion, so you're in one room and then you move to a different set. In this, they just like walk 6 feet over.
They go from being in the outdoor food set on Giada's home kitchen. With like a tarp, not a tarp, but like a slight canopy over you for shade.
Right.
Into the Agrabah Bazaar tent where you haggle for the French fry maker.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's very, very weird. But the guy, so obviously Donald Pleasance is my number one, and I already mentioned the woman who's my second favorite in this. But the guy who I think really stands out from someone
Me as an aviator?
Yes, he's this real sort of like dandy type, and I mean that in the old movie style way of just like very, very well dressed, foppish, yeah. And he's like got a sort of swashbuckling air to him, where he's just like this.
Yeah, Errol Flynn.
Errol Flynn, yeah. I could, you could see him stepping off the silver screen in the 40s and being like a real heartthrob. But he goes to light a cigarette and a monkey comes and just takes it from him, and it's like, I guess monkeys hate smoking. I don't understand what's happening. But all I could think of,
because they're like, it has to be a trained monkey, and then they don't acknowledge it ever again. So I'm like, is that someone's monkey?
Yeah, I don't think so, but it is funny to conceive of Donald Pleasance being like, all right, first we'll work on the smoking, and he's like lighting up and the monkey coming to steal it repeatedly. He's got like a training montage of this monkey. Like, time to stab through the back of the head with an axe. And he's got the monkey.
I wish it was the monkeys all along.
Chopping wood. If this turned out to be Donald Pleasance orchestrated a bunch of murder via monkey, I would be so into this movie.
It'd be so much better.
I can't imagine. But I was also thinking of the Clerks cartoon where they teach the monkey how to smoke.
I don't remember that part.
The episode where they get locked. There's like they eat the weird burritos and
they're locked in the freezer.
No. They eat these weird burritos and they get like a tent erected around them because it's like the deadly Mutaba virus. They're spoofing that Dustin Hoffman.
12 Monkeys. No.
Contagion.
No.
The very famous virus movie.
That's not Contagion.
Outbreak.
Yes.
Yeah. And they there's a monkey and they teach the monkey how to smoke.
I think I'm vaguely recalling this. I'll have to watch it again.
This is a reference for
me,
literally you, and no one else. Like the number of people who watch the Clerks cartoon and are listening to this podcast is a Venn diagram that includes you and me.
Yes. So, in a scene that feels like that scene from League of Extraordinary Gentlemen when they reveal that is it Dorian Gray who betrays them? I think
that's right.
There's a record that the cook was told to play that's basically like, here's all your crimes, and he like individually like says like, you murdered this person, you did this,
It's interesting too, though, because it's like about a third of them are out and out murders, and about a third of them seem like probably intended, like, manslaughter, and then about a third of them seem like actual accidents.
Yes, which was the point. So in the book, the way the book ends is that everyone dies because everyone is guilty. And when they wanted her to make it into a play, they were like, first they wanted someone else to write it. And she was like, no, I'm going to write it. I'll take 4 years, but I'll write it myself. And they were like, well, you cannot have everyone die. That is our conceit. So she had to change it so that 2 people were not as bad.
Yeah.
So that the audience wouldn't feel bad when they survived.
Right. Which makes sense.
Yeah. So that's why Vera is basically a camp counselor at Crystal Lake.
Right. And Frank Stallone is just a soldier, it seems like.
Yeah.
So Donald starts doing some detecting work, and then we find out that this guy who kind of looks like Orson Welles, and I could not get over it, was
the doctor.
The one who's actually a detective.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, he does look like Orson Welles.
Yeah. So Dollar Store Orson Welles is like, well, actually, I'm a detective, so perhaps I should do the detecting here, Judge. So they
also,
are
was
trying
he
to find
the one
out
who orchestrated everything? Maybe take a seat.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I was thinking about this in terms of, have you ever played, I've played it as a board game, but it's also a game you can play without being a board game, but One Night Ultimate Werewolf?
I've played regular werewolf, but yes.
Okay. So it's like, everybody's got their roles and you have to figure out who's the werewolf and kill them. And if you kill the werewolf, like the village survives. And if not, you all die. There's an interesting strategy to that game, to being the werewolf and being really aggressive to start, because people have this subconscious subservience that you can really play with. I mean this in terms of like playing a board game with your friends for fun, not being a fucking sociopath maniac, to be clear, which I think is bad. But you can see it in terms of, people in the real world too. But you can really, if you take charge and don't even bat an eye at the fact that you're taking charge, the people will just listen to you. It's very strange how quickly that will happen.
Yeah.
So I get it of him being like, all right, well, what are you doing here? How did you get here? Because it's like, we got to throw the scent off.
That's fair. I'm just picturing him I'm picturing the comedy version of this where they're all like, well, that's weird, but if he's not going to show up, do we just leave? And then him be like,
yeah,
well, maybe we shouldn't leave.
Perhaps we should enjoy some of the libations here.
Maybe he will show.
we shouldn't, that professor not being here for 15 minutes is a myth. Where you can just leave.
The professor not being
that's not real. You can't just leave here. You won't get credit for attendance. The thing I have a big beef, as a heavy man who sweats a lot, I got 2 beefs here. Number one,
the African savannah as a whole.
Half of these men, I don't have a problem with the African savannah, but you got to dress for the environment you're in. Pleasance and 2 of the other guys are wearing 3-piece suits all the time.
That's how you dress when it's 1940, whatever.
It's 140 degrees and you don't even have a fan. But the other thing is, Mr. Swashbuckler picks up a bottle. It looks like Dom. It has that sort of Batman-ish label that's very recognizable.
Yes.
I've always felt the Dom label's very Batman-ish. Do you not agree?
I agree. I never thought about it, but you're not wrong.
It's very superhero crest to me. Not that I've had, I don't know if I've ever drank Dom, but he's drinking it, and I'm like, this bottle of champagne is not warm. It's actively hot. It's like a cup of tea.
Wasn't it in a bucket?
No. None of the drinks are in a bucket. And I'm like, even if it was in a bucket, where did the ice, where would they possibly have gotten ice? You can't transport ice across
They might have an ice chest.
I guess maybe they could have an ice chest. There's no evidence that these drinks are cold. And so you're drinking, it's one thing to drink warm
these
whiskey.
are British people for the most part, so
yeah. Although
they're allergic to ice cubes.
They are allergic to ice cubes. That is true.
A cold fucking drink.
Yeah, I have a friend who's originally from Portugal, and he keeps his Brita pitcher on the counter because he just doesn't drink cold water. And I'm like, when I go over there, they're like, "Don't worry, we made ice for you," because it's oh, I'm the weirdo. And I'm like, no, man, cold drinks, please.
Like the Wendy's song. Which we've had this exact from A to B to C moment before.
People are like, my God, we get people it. You like ice.
People are fast forwarding 15 seconds to see if we're still like. Let me guess, they're on the Wendy's by now.
They're still doing ice. But yeah, I was like, it's our normal ice things aside, like if you got to pack for the environment you're going to, when you go backpacking and you want to have a little drink around the campfire, you bring like a hard liquor because it's a weight ratio issue. You got to carry that thing. You don't bring a bunch of beers because you can't keep them cold. You can't. You don't bring champagne because you can't keep it cold, and it's heavy. You know, it's like you gotta prepare for where you're going. This is a red wine experience. This is a dark liquor experience. This is not a Dom Perignon experience.
That's true. So when everyone reveals their, everyone's crimes, quote unquote, have been revealed, the wife of the chef goes into hysterics and falls down. I was like, did she just die?
Yeah.
And then, no, she didn't. They carry her away, and then the doctor comes in, and, like, I don't know what they were trying to accomplish here, but it just, like, wasn't effective, because the doctor is like, give her half a teaspoon of this in a cup of water, and if she doesn't fall asleep, another half a teaspoon, but no more than that. And then her husband picks up a lady who's tied to the train tracks and twirls his mustache and is like, what? And then we have a piano man in the corner like, like, Snidely Whiplash is her husband.
Right. Also, like, where's this quarter teaspoon he needs coming from? Like, that's
and a glass of water.
To eyeball. Yeah, exactly. It's a very strange amount to eyeball. How about this, Doc? You portion out the medicine.
Mm-hmm.
It's exclusively done because, from a standpoint of someone who enjoys a parlor mystery, you write this ambiguously because you want to make sure it's hard to figure out who the killer is, which is fine. Yes. But if I'm this guy, I'm going like, I don't got it. Like, you're the doctor. You portion it out. Like, what?
But just like the way he's acting is so stupidly over the top. In the mousetrap, I like this. The setup is better that everyone is the murderer because it starts with a radio announcement that's like, The assailant was seen wearing a dark overcoat, a purple scarf, and a gray hat. And then every character who walks in the door is wearing a dark overcoat, a purple scarf, and a gray, or like whatever it is specifically.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
So that you're like, oh, everyone, okay. It could be anyone.
All the killer. Yeah.
Instead of this like literal silent film villain acting.
Yeah.
This is where handsome mustache aviator, who I never actually wrote his name down. He's handsome mustache aviator. He's like, well, I'll tell you. He's like, I did the crime that I did, but it was an accident. I was driving, and this couple ran in front of my car, and I couldn't stop in time, and they died.
Yeah.
He pops the champagne. He's like, I don't know what else I can do because clearly he sounds like he like waited for the police and like he didn't drive away. He should have driven away because then it would have been more like you murdered.
You're totally right. Yeah, that would be more of a valid reason for him being here if he was like actively, avoiding the police and trying not to get caught or whatever, as opposed to like you're right. It does seem like he was like, I was in a really bad accident, 2 people died, and I think about it every day. It haunts me.
Yeah,
he doesn't seem like a guy who's flippant about it.
What this should have been, because it is a movie and not a play, is that it should have been flashbacks. We should have gotten flashbacks to everyone doing their crimes.
Exactly. Yeah, that costs money, unfortunately, and Canon Films is a notorious scrimper and saver. But yeah, you're totally right. If you're going to do this as a movie, what you do is put flashbacks in to make it more a movie.
Then the voiceover of his story can be different than what we're seeing. He can be telling them, I waited, and the police came, and we can show him like wiping his brow and driving away real quick.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Way better movie. So he takes a big swig and drains.
Well, no. First, they find out that their host isn't real because the letter is UNON for unknown, which is cute.
Yes. Yeah. I did. That was like a sort of like Looney Tunes or theme park Q joke that I was like, yeah, I'm into this.
Yeah.
He drains his dom that's probably somewhere around 200 degrees approximately. It boils him from the inside out and he dies. He doesn't boil from the inside out. I mean, that would be cool, but that's not what happens.
He dies. And then everyone's kind of like...
everyone's like, quickly, we must bury him to keep the lions at bay, which I could not believe. Like, this is a movie trope that we joke about. I'm sure we've joked about it 1,000 times in the past, but like, I've never done it, so I'm not speaking from experience, but it is tremendously difficult to build a proper grave. It's hard.
You have to unless you're digging like a 2-foot grave.
Right. And that's not helpful if there's lions about.
Correct. But they're like, what happened? And it's like, obviously the wine was poisoned.
Yeah. He literally drank it down and like held the empty glass up and then collapsed.
And he grabbed at his throat. Like, he did all of the signs of poison.
Yeah, and the other great part is they're all like, oh, he must be drunk as a skunk. Yes, he's been consuming quite a lot of that single glass of champagne we've seen.
No, he had a martini as soon as he got there. That's why I liked that guy. He showed up in an airplane. He made an entrance. He has a great mustache. He's wearing really tight pants. And he said, I need a martini in this heat.
But they like... him being so drunk he's falling down. I'm like, have you never been around a drunk person who's like falling down? They're like a slurry mess.
Yes. So they bury him quickly.
And we cut to the next morning and it's a Swiss Family Robinson shower that this lady's taking.
Yeah, it's weird because like I don't have a mental map of this campsite.
Yeah.
Of like where anything is. Because earlier, Vera, the main woman, because she's in her 20s, so she's the main character.
Yeah.
She walks out of her tent and there's like a canvas bag on 4 bamboo poles.
Yeah,
and it's
a little like
full of
wash
water.
bin. Mm-hmm.
It's like it's a canvas wash bin, which I always think is an interesting aesthetic because I'm always like, how that should not be watertight. So I was like,
Scotch guarding.
Yeah, a lot of Scotch guarding. And so that, like, I was like, this should have, I feel like this little basin, like, there should be more basins like this around camp. Like, I don't know where we are, what we're doing.
Yeah.
I also don't know where everyone's going to the bathroom.
Yeah, they don't have an obvious latrine anywhere.
Weird.
Yeah, and normally you dig that. So I thought that was going to be how someone dies, because much like outhouses and regular houses, you got to put those a little farther away from where you're setting up for obvious reasons. And so it was like, oh, someone's going to go to the bathroom and get killed, which is like an obvious thing that doesn't happen in this movie.
No, they probably couldn't afford a bathroom.
They're just like, pick a bush, it's canon, baby.
Yeah, pretty much. And this is where we have the towel scene we talked about.
Right. The monkey steals the towel, then Frank gives it to her and he's like, I think you dropped this.
Yeah, and he's not leering at all. Like, it is the most like...
he's not a creep, it's just here you drop
He's like
your
kind
towel.
of looking away from her and he like hands it over the top.
Yep. It's exactly the thing a person should do in this situation. If it's like, hey, I can't find my towel. It's like, yep, here you go. And you try to not to
We've
look.
known each other for a day, so hi here.
Yeah. It's like, as much as I'm sure it'd be great to get a peep of this, I'm not going to do it because I'm not a creep.
Mm-hmm.
Not a creep. No peep.
Yes. That's a t-shirt. And so this is where
he's looking for bullets at this point because I think he's worried about the lion now.
Correct.
Because they saw tracks. I think this is where we see the tracks, and he
says it's a woman. It's a young girl lion because she's erratic or something. And I was like,
yeah,
get out of here.
He's able to look at the tracks and know like he's like, she weighs about 492 pounds. She hasn't eaten for 3 to 4 days, and she's probably got the tail around 18 to 22 inches.
Yeah, I was like, how, buddy? This is not. It's not magic what trackers can do.
Right. But yeah, he's looking for bullets, and then he sees, oh no, someone has destroyed the radio, which he had used just the other day.
Yeah, we have the shining moment. And then at lunch, the general. So it's a doctor, a general, a private eye, an aviator, an adventureman,
a adventureman. The cook's
his wife,
who I think is a maid. I think she's a maid.
Oh, is she?
I think so.
A governess
with a lesbian lover.
No. The governess is the young woman.
Oh, governess is like nanny.
It's like a nanny who teaches.
Yes.
There's the I think she's an actress with the lesbian.
I think so. Yeah.
And then that's 9.
Donald.
And then a judge, Donald.
Yeah.
So the general turns to the governess and he's like, I don't know if he's trying to say she's his daughter or his wife.
I think it's the wife.
Yeah.
When he tells the story later, I think it's the wife.
Okay. Because it's a weird moment where you're like, is this supposed to be that like she's hiding her past?
Yeah. Yeah, it all flows into that, like the movie's trying to throw you off the scent, but it's very confusing because I'm with you, like I don't know what we're trying, like
it's
what
not
are you
good
accusing?
Confusing.
Yeah, because the idea of like, oh, it's his long lost daughter would be an interesting wrinkle, but only if everyone's connected to him, which they are not.
Exactly. It's not good Aronofsky confusing. It's just confusing.
Right. So at this point, fake Dom DeLuise comes out and he's like, my wife has died.
And everyone takes one last bite of eggs and then makes sure their fork is laid down and stands up from the table and then walks over there.
It's not far off.
She's fucking died!
Yeah,
move it! Yeah. Pick up your knees!
Yeah. Let's go! Hustle!
They needed a gay there to be like, drama.
What?
Spit take with a martini.
Yeah, that guy should last the whole movie just so he should have been the whole time.
I was like, this fop should have been around more because he could have kept things moving.
Yeah, he had a good energy. I was legit sad he's the first one out the door.
And they also like, well, Mr. Owen could be here any minute. And I'm like, you all think he's still like, you still think he's coming?
That's because the scenes that we don't see, like all the interstitials, is just Donald being like, no, I hear him calling.
I just saw him.
He's round the bend, he said. On the coconut he sent me.
And then they're like, I know what we'll do. We'll all weapon up and go look for him. And I was like, you think he's just like sneaking around? The savannah's open. There's not a lot of like places to hide.
The idea that this leads to like a Scooby-Doo montage in which they find the guy creepily hiding and then they like pull his mask off and he's got like "You Owen" tattooed on his forehead or something.
Like if I have gone through the trouble of getting everyone here, setting up the tent, making sure there's food there, making the record, having the record player there.
Right.
Orchestrating all these deaths. I'm not doing it. Like I'm not there to do it. Right.
Exactly. It's too much work. You got after you set it all up, you don't get your hands dirty.
No, you push the first domino and then it does the thing.
Yeah, but the way this is set up, Donald Pleasance is essentially Jigsaw.
Yes, it is.
You're all guilty, and I have laid traps for you.
It should have been more trap-like.
Would you like to play a game?
And
chess or checkers? I don't understand backgammon.
I truly don't understand backgammon.
Neither do I.
So the general, his crime was revealed that he sent his wife's lover on a suicide mission knowing he would die, which is probably on the more severe end
it's
of
like
it's the manslaughter, severe manslaughter, we'll say.
Yeah. It's like, I get it. Like, I understand feeling the way you did, and what you did is wrong, but it's not like you killed him. Like, you sent other people on that mission, right? Like, it was, presumably you didn't just be like, all right, Jerry, you have to do this.
It sounded like he just sent him.
Oh, I got the impression that he was like, I chose him to lead the battalion in which we lost all our men.
Oh, no, I got the sense that it was like, I sent him alone because I knew he would die.
Yeah, that makes sense. If that is the case, that is a little more.
Basically, his wife got stupid and put the wrong. Like she was there. If both your men are on the front line in the same battle, write to one. You got to pick one. Sorry, because she was writing to both of them and put the wrong letters in the wrong envelope. So her husband got the side piece envelope.
Yeah, they got each other's letters. The other thing that I find really funny about this scenario is like the side piece got the husband's letter.
Yeah. And he has to know that.
Right. At that point, you have to be like, hey, man, I fucked
we cool?
up. You want to talk about it? You want to have a fight? You want to beat me up? Like, there's answers here that aren't just like pretending this didn't happen. But yeah, you're right. It's like you got to pick one. And if you're not going to pick one, you send one letter at a time.
It is not a two-letter situation.
Right. You can't make it so you cross these wires.
Mm-hmm.
So the tiger shows up, the fake Orson Welles.
The lion shows up.
Sorry, yeah, you're right. Lioness. Fake Orson Welles gets stuck in a bear trap and then frees himself and then has absolutely no ill effects from it having clamped upon his leg.
Yeah, I mean, we call them bear traps, but I have literally only ever seen humans in them in media. So
yes,
they're human traps, really.
Yeah. But it's like a spring-tensioned, sharp-toothed thing clamped into your calf.
He opens it like it's a binder clip.
Right, but also like those teeth went into your calf. It's all soft tissue back there.
It's squishy.
He doesn't even have a tiny little Dewey in Scream 2 limp. He's got no evidence that he's been injured.
Or at least like put like a handkerchief around your leg.
Sure, something.
And the general gets pushed off a cliff.
Yeah. And so it's interesting. Did you remember the plot of this at the time you were watching it?
So I didn't remember specifics. Like I didn't remember like the death order, but I remembered that Vera ended. Spoilers. I remember that Vera ended up being the one alive in the end, and the judge orchestrated all of it.
Okay, so I didn't remember any of that. I thought this looked like a woman's hand.
It did have it did seem slender.
And the nails were very manicured, like not manicured in that they like had a manicure applied to them, but they were like very like
they weren't polished, but they were clean.
Yeah, but they were like buffed.
Oh,
like they almost had a shine to them. I was like a very ladylike hand.
It should have been everyone just bumps off someone else.
Right. I was just surprised they didn't put this hand in a glove. I guess is my
a glove would have made more sense. And then we also find out that they have no real ammunition.
Right. Orson Welles tries to shoot the tiger. It runs away, but is unscathed. Yes, lion. I'm sorry.
Tigers look very different.
I know, it's dumb and bad. I got no excuse. But he says they're blanks, and then he like shoots it at Frank Stallone as if he was the culprit. And then later he like touches it and he's like, the bullets are waxed, so they're useless. And like, I don't know anything about anything, but it seems to me that wax wouldn't do all that much. Like wax
wouldn't explode, right? Unless there was gunpowder in it.
I think the idea is that it's supposed to be enough to just change the trajectory so the bullets are useless. Like you can't aim them because they like will wobble instead of firing in a straight line. But like gunpowder is very hot. Like I would think that at the range she was trying to shoot this lioness, that the bullet would still probably have hit the lion.
Oh, I missed the wax part. I know that he said blanks, but I missed the wax part.
Yeah, he says that they're like waxed or something like that. It was something odd. I was unfamiliar with it.
And this is where they realize that one of them is Owen. The call is coming from inside the house.
Yes.
And so they just decide, like, the most batshit decision. They're like, let's all get together in the Agri-Bazaar tent and let's vote on who we think is the killer. And then let's reveal the vote to everyone in front of everyone.
Yes. And so
what Lord of the Flies shit is this?
It's crazy, but also my favorite part is this is again we go back to my theory of like just pretend to be in charge and people will listen to you. But like Donald is the one who conducts this poll, and they turn to the cop or private eye and they're like, "Is this a good idea?" And he's like, "I don't know, it's as good as any other idea." And Donald has to be like, "Yes, come attention this way as I read out our accusations of one another."
I mean, he's a judge, so I guess he would have the most experience with that, but like it's not a good idea.
And the other part that's really funny is like this scene is so painstaking because it's like one vote for Paul, one vote for Peter, one vote for Mary,
the unfolding. It's not they don't do cuts. It's
right. But there's at this point
one vote
left.
For the judge. One vote for Vera. One vote for the aviator.
He's already dead. How could he be doing this?
That couldn't possibly happen. Once someone is dead, they're not suspects. Everyone write that one down.
Equals not suspect. But it's like they do this scene in the worst way possible, exactly as you described it, and then only one person gets more than one vote. I thought it was going to be a very hilarious everyone voted for one other person situation.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be there. It's a tie.
Yeah, an 8-way 1-vote tie.
So that insanity happens, and this is where Donald Pleasance says, like, keep your tents locked, and keep your tents closed tonight. Don't let anyone in. And again, It's canvas, Donald.
Right. With string. It's not even like, anyway, and also the doctor locks up the totems at this point in a little
right, because the totems
curio.
one keeps breaking for each murder victim.
Right.
And at this point, there's 3.
And so at this point, the giant guy from Dune, I think it's Paul Smith is his name.
I think so.
The doctor's like, here, why don't you take the key to the top of the hill? That'll keep it safe.
He says, I'm not sleeping. I'm not going to my tent. I'm going to go sit at the top of the hill and look down at everyone so I can see that no one is going to come after me. And then the doctor says, well, if you're going to do that, take the key. Since we'll know it's safe since it's not here, which is a double edge of like, hey, if someone dies, we know who did it.
Right. But like the fact that they're all just like, well, I mean, the guy two of us think is the killer is going to just hang out on top of the hill while we go to sleep. Seems fine to me. Night.
I'm not sleeping.
Right. You know what I really wish we got in this movie that we don't get? Donald Pleasance in like 'Twas the Night Before Christmas sleeping gown and cap.
Yes, a full not Scrooge McDuck, just Scrooge.
McDuck.
Just
Ebenezer Scrooge. Ebenezer Scrooge. Spirit, no.
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of mad Donald Pleasance never. Not that I like that story. I think it's. I really don't care for A Christmas Carol, but I would watch the Donald Pleasance Christmas Carol.
Yeah, he's such an obvious Scrooge. Honestly, like as good as the Michael Caine version is, and he understood the assignment and yada yada yada. Pleasance could have played the Muppet Scrooge. That would have been the right tone, I think.
He could. Maybe he was too short.
I think he was dead by then.
Oh, well, that too.
Yeah. I'm still around.
Or wasn't Muppet? Is Muppet Christmas Carol not like 1990?
I thought it was more like mid-ish 90s. I don't know off the top of my head. I think Donald Pleasance died in like 94, 95.
Okay. Because I know he's not there for H2O, which is 97.
Right, he had died by then. No, that would be 8.
98?
78.
Oh, I thought it was 77.
No, we talked about the possibility of doing Halloween once we opened the doors on the podcast a little.
Right. Well, it has sequels.
Right. It's in for a number of ways. We made sure of this, but sequels all count and all that business.
And this is where I realized that like, if I knew the 10 Little poem, I would be more scared, but they have to tell me what's about to happen and then just do it.
Well, they don't tell you what's about to happen. They have the person die, and then someone recites the poem stanza that's relevant.
Yeah, because this one says it's 10 little people chopping up sticks. One chopped himself in half. So 7 little people chopping up sticks. One chopped himself in half, and then there were 6. And I was like, ooh, are we going to get cut in half?
Yeah.
And then, no, he just has an axe in the back of his head. And I was like...
Yeah, pretty let down. Also, the idea that you would sit at the top of a hill in a lion-infested area is deeply weird to me. But hey, what do I know?
I mean, there's murderers and there's lions, so you got to take your pick.
Also, I just want to clarify to you that not only have I gotten it wrong every time here, it's because I wrote tiger every time in my notes.
You wrote tiger in your notes?
Every single note is tiger.
Well, you said lions just now, so...
I know. I've tried to fix it. I'm just telling you it's wrong because I've been wrong from Jump Street.
Gotcha. So Donald Pleasance plays croquet with the doctor, I think?
Yeah, and he stirs up a bunch of shit, which is really funny to me. Like,
I mean,
he starts...
Also, Donald Pleasance playing croquet is just adorable.
Yeah. They do like a couple of good shots, and then he does that thing, which I like vaguely the rules of croquet. I've played it a couple of times, but there's something where wherein it is useful to just wallop your opponent's ball into the nether space, and Donald takes real pleasure in doing that to the doctor as he's screwing with him.
Yeah. Donald Pleasance and Heathers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the whole thing, he's like, well, you're the only one with hypodermic needles and access to hatchets. And the doctor's like, whoa. Everyone has access to the hatchets. And he's like, not as far as I can tell. That Dr. Tool of a rusty hatchet.
And then Vera goes and talks to the actress lady who reveals she's a lesbian in 1989.
And it's not shitty. Like, it's not like, oh, you horrible monster creature. It's just like, I had a lesbian lover and I was in love with her and we had this torrid affair. And it was just like, oh, wow. Like, I thought you would be played very differently when that information got revealed.
And then she quote unquote murdered. She she got into a fight with her lover, her girlfriend, whatever, and who
lover is funnier for the sake of the podcast.
They were breaking up, I guess, and she had threatened to go to the studio on the woman the woman in the movie was being threatened that she was like, I'm gonna go to the studio and you're never gonna work again. And they were drunk and fighting, and she fell in the pool, and she was like, I just let her stay there, and she drowned. So it's more of the manslaughtery.
Yeah, that one's pretty cruel to me. Like you may not have intended for murder to happen, but at the point which you actively choose not to save someone from drowning, I'm like, oh, you're bad. You're a little scary to me.
Yeah.
Frank fixes the radio, meanwhile, and then Miss Marshall, who was just speaking, has like the exertion of telling the story of how she murdered her lover has.
So they do a thing where Vera's acting suspicious in the tent because it's her turn to be the suspect, and so she comes out, and Donald Pleasance and the doctor walk up, and she's like, she's sleeping, and they're like, well, let's go check on her, and she's like, no, don't, you'll wake her up, and I was like. Okay, I get what we're doing. We can dial it back a few clicks.
Right.
Because Vera then goes to the tent, the bizarre tent, and turns on a metronome. And like, I don't know why I love the imagery of a metronome. It's like spooky and there's something about it. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I'm with you. I get there. Very creepy.
And then the biggest, it looks like those things you can buy to inject things into turkeys, like butter into turkey.
Yes. Now. Or the do you remember the old Ron Popeil commercial?
Yeah.
Like a
the
whole
flavor injector.
Garlic in there. Yeah.
Put a solid flavor. A whole bowl of garlic in there. Did you know he is Ashley Tisdale's uncle?
I did not know they were related, but Hollywood nepotism, baby.
Yeah, it's just like, that's my favorite weird one because it is not
a good one.
It's not an A to B. It's not a Baldwin or a Howard or Howard.
Yeah.
I am Ron Popeil, creator of everything that your parents had in the 70s. And also that's what I call music.
Yes.
And
wait, is that really Ron Popeil? That's what I call music.
Or no, maybe it wasn't. No. So he created a record company that did all of those like scrolling.
The like absolute
not
metal,
but like smooth love sounds, and it's like
yes, okay, yeah. Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about. Pure moods, and it's like
the ones that are blue are the ones that are playing when the titles scroll by.
So I was like, it was late at night, and I was playing this video game, and it was like the kind of one you can put music on during, because it's like I was just kind of like messing around with this game, open world type thing, and I got that stupid. It was during the pandemic. I got that stupid commercial. It popped into my head, Pure Moods, and I was like, I gotta look this up, and I pulled it up on YouTube. And the Pure Mood soundtrack includes like Enya and like, you know, weird new
I don't know
agey.
Pure Moods. I'll have to look it up.
Oh, I have a lot of memory of Pure Moods, but it also includes, and I can only hear this in the announcer's voice, Tubular Bells, and then it's the Exorcist
theme?
Yes, and I'm just like, I mean, I guess this is a mood, and it's afraid.
Not a good mood.
It's like, why would you put this on this CD of new agey relaxation bullshit? And you're like, all right, so sail away, sail away, sail away, and yep. See, you know the commercial because that's the song that comes next.
Yeah.
You do know it, but then the final one is like. Tubular Bells, boo 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 boo, and I'm just like, what?
Every time I go to hum Tubular Bells, I hum the Halloween theme. I can't hum Tubular Bells. I can only hum the Halloween theme.
Yeah. But I ended up finding that soundtrack on Spotify and listening to it, and at the point where Tubular Bells came on, I was like, no, wrong energy.
I'm gonna have to Google this infomercial. See, my infomercial is the Magic Bullet.
Oh yeah, sure.
When I am like, cannot sleep.
I hate chopping garlic, that lady, right?
She's the fucking best because she makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, why is the short order waitress?
It's Hazel. Her name is Hazel. But it's this like group of pretty attractive, you know, late 20s, like 30 somethings.
Yeah.
One big dude because it's funny he's fat. And then this like 60-year-old woman with South Philly red hair and a cigarette dangling out of her mouth just shows up in this people's house.
She's like a short order cook that just walked
in a house dress. It's so weird. But that's my I cannot sleep at all. I'm gonna put this on and it's gonna put me to sleep.
The one that I would put in that, I have not done that, but it's a funny idea, would be the rotisserie, the Showtime rotisserie for sure.
Oh, set it and forget it?
With the solid flavor injector. Yeah, it's probably a little too loud to fall asleep to, but it would be on the list.
Kathy Mitchell also.
Okay, all right. Where the hell are we in this movie?
So the giant old-timey needle.
Yes.
A gloved hand picks up that needle.
Yes, there we go. Okay.
And injects some flavor into our lesbian actress.
Several cloves of garlic, a couple of rosemaries.
I remember the because the needle's like stretchy, I think, and so like the garlic, the whole garlic. I remember that it was a crosscut.
They do this weird thing where they like put a piece of pork like up against a pane of glass, and they do it right next to the glass so you can see. But how do you?
It was a whole. I remember it being a whole clove of garlic.
No, it is. It's like a. Imagine a turkey baster with like a plunger that you could like force out the end instead of like a squisher.
So it's not the end wasn't stretchy then.
No. You like took the top off and it was like a test tube. You know, like it was like an inch wide.
I was picturing it stretching out so that the whole clove was visible in there.
No, you see the tube is
I remember
clear.
the cross section, but I remember I remember it looking like a whole wide clove of garlic.
This is the third or fourth minute of us discussing this Ron Popeil's solid flavor injector on a podcast about.
I don't think anyone's mad.
Agatha Christie movie. I just want to. Sometimes I just need to point things out. You got to establish.
I don't think anyone's mad.
So she dies, and then very shortly thereafter, Donald Pleasance dies, which is like deeply frustrating that you're killing.
She dies, and then Vera is in her room, and she like moves her mirror, and Frank Stallone is behind her, and he has a gun to her back, and he says, "I don't mean to scare you." Then what are you doing?
Yes, this is a strange approach to do that, Frank.
And then this is where there's a gunshot, and Donald Pleasance is revealed to be dead. So Vera's like, "You had the only bullets."
Right. Because earlier we established that Frank had functioning bullets, despite there being no others. But like,
it's Pleasance doctor and the detective get drunk and confess their crimes.
That's right.
Right before that,
skip that part. Yeah, I'm sorry. Everyone has confessed at this point, except Vera has confessed at this point. But there's 20 minutes left in this movie, and you killed Ms. Marshall and Donald Pleasance. That's the two best actors in this thing. Why are they not here?
Yeah. And then Vera's like, "You had the only bullets." And he's like, "Well, you don't know anything about guns, so let me tell you. This gun would smell like smoke, and it would be hot if I just killed someone, so
I mean, he does, those seem like valid points to me.
Yeah, but if you are the only one with gun knowledge...
Yeah.
I'm going to get a second opinion before I'm just like blindly trusting you.
Yeah. Presumably one of these other men in three-piece suits in the Safari or Sahara have had a gun.
Not Sahara, it's a Safari.
Okay. Well, it could be a Safari in the Sahara, no?
Isn't Sahara more like deserty?
North? Okay. Yeah, I guess you're
I think Sahara's more deserty. This is more savanna.
Maybe this is the Serengeti.
There you go. The Serengeti.
Yes. So Vera explains what happened.
Babies and flowers. The Serengeti.
That's Donald Pleasance's bald head inside a cabbage.
Oh my God, Donald Pleasance is surrounded. He's the center of a fucking sunflower.
Yes, exactly. Oh, Mamma Mia.
That's gonna be that has to be the Photoshop.
I can find an Ann Getty's photo and put us in it with Donald Pleasance.
Yes.
All right, I'll do that. I'm a little sunflower. Watch me grow. Water me.
So this is where Vera tells her Friday the 13th story that she was governess for a little boy and he was swimming and she looked away for a second and he drowned, but she tried to like swim out and save him, but she couldn't. It was too late, which like, how far out was this fucking kid?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what are the wave situation that this kid couldn't be saved if he immediately went under and you ran after him? Did you fill his pockets with rocks?
But also like, I know how far out was he?
Right. Like, as long as I can see you, you're fine. She's got like one of those old time extendable telescopes.
Yeah, she like pulls it.
Yeah. I still see him. No worries here.
Tie him, put a rope around him.
Exactly. Leash him to the beach.
And then this is where Vera reveals that. So Frank Stallone, the adventureman / Indiana Jones character's name is Lombard. Yeah. We have not used that once, but his name was Lombard.
Correct.
And this is where we learned that he's not Lombard. He's Hutchinson, Lombard's friend. Lombard died, and he was like, the trip was paid for, so I just came. And I was like,
yeah.
I mean, like, I get it. I would too.
Insane. Yeah.
But like,
it's the end of Vegas Vacation. It's just like the guy dies and he dropped his Keno ticket, and they're like, well, okay, I'll take this.
I mean, it's got to go. The casino doesn't need that money.
Yeah, it's fine. We just watched that movie when I was with Mom and Dad for Christmas, and it was on the day after. And I was like, even as a kid, I was like, "There's no way you don't take this ticket. There's no
of course you take
harm."
That ticket.
Right. Like, even before you know the old man has no family, like, well, they're never gonna know. Like, who cares?
Also, hang on. Is it supposed to be that Chevy Chase is lying about the old man telling him to take the ticket? Is that supposed to be the joke?
No, I think he says take the ticket. I think
I was like, hang on.
I think that is
did that get way darker than that?
No. I'm just saying is like they make a point for the EMTs to be like, the poor old man had no family, and all he ever wanted was someone to sit and be nice to him. So they like feel good about taking this thing. But I'm like, this is a victimless crime. He's dead. Like, he's
fully
dead.
Victimless crime.
Right. It's like, okay, so what is the scenario? You're gonna like put this ticket in, go to the police, help them find the thing, and then hand it over to family members if they track him down? No, get out of here. This is insane.
Sorry, wouldn't bother.
This is not a podcast about a 22-year-old Chevy Chase vehicle, but if it was 24, I think it's 97.
Yeah. I also didn't know they made Super Nintendo games up until 1990. Like 1997, they made a Super Nintendo game because I was like,
yeah,
I thought they had switched to N64 by then.
Yeah, they linger on the consoles longer than you think a lot of times. So anyway, she leaves Frank after he confesses to this situation, and when he yells after her and is like, Vera, he sounds just like Sly. It's like one of a handful of words or whatever. Speaking of, by the way, I meant to bring this up earlier. The whole like casting people with the same name thing. I didn't know this until recently, but apparently in the late 90s, Al Pacino's estranged father, Sal, like he has no relationship with him, and Quentin Tarantino's estranged father, Tony, made a movie together so that they could put Tarantino and Pacino on the box.
Well, at least he's Sal Pacino. Like if you squint, like if they could make the S small.
Yeah, and so I imagine it like a 4-point S and a giant AL next to it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's Tony Tarantino. And they had like, I imagine it was just like Tarantino 100-point font, Pacino 100-point font, and then Sal, Tony. Isn't it like 1 point? They barely register. So they run to Orson Welles' tent and they find the dead doctor at this point.
See, Orson Welles is in there like drunk. And they're like, where's the doctor? And there is a canvas body bag dripping blood in the tent. And I was like, the detective didn't see that?
Right.
The detective.
It's ludicrous.
In his tent.
Yes. At this point, Vera gets to do your favorite line in all of cinema.
Which one?
Jennifer Love Hewitt, and I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh, what are you waiting for? Yeah, she doesn't get to do a What Are You Waiting For?
So at that point, Orson goes down.
Yes, Orson. I don't remember how he dies.
I don't either. I just wrote Orson is dead. It's very strange that I don't recall this at all.
Yeah, because I remember that they're apart and she screams at his dead body, and Frank Stallone mall walks over to her.
Yes.
And then they wrestle with the gun. She takes it from him and they wrestle with it, and we hear a gunshot.
Yes. Donald is back from the dead.
Donald reveals that he is alive the whole time.
And he gets the gun and he starts doing his like, evil monologue. He gets her to put this noose on.
Well, the problem is that like this version of things is like the original one. Everyone dies and a bottle washes up on shore with a note in it that is from the judge that says, I did everything. This is how I did it.
Yeah.
When he's still alive, because you have to like do it, like it's clunky. He has to say, this is how I did it, because it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Right. And so he's like he's sort of dressed like a judge from old England. He's got like the English wig thing.
Well, I mean, I think he was.
No, he is. So I always forget that that's like still a thing they do over there. Like they still wear those
wig.
dumb. Yeah. But so he's like, I'm going to drink this hemlock, which gives me exactly 3 minutes to explain what I've done before I yank the stool out from under your feet. And so he goes and explains, like, all of you were sinners and I gave you the chance to survive. Wait, that's Saw.
I was going to say that was not, he did not he just wanted to kill him.
I did not remember this correctly.
Well, it also like is like very effectively bleak that like Vera goes to like kick him and he yanks the chair out from under her. And so she has to like hold herself up to not choke.
Yeah. And this is like the worst way of hanging. Like a lot of like, this is something you see a lot where people depict hanging as like choking to death. Like actual hanging, you're supposed to break your neck.
It's a broken neck. It has 13 coils because that's what breaks your neck.
Yeah. But this is not. This is just her slowly choking to death as Donald keels over from the hemlock.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns out Frank Stallone is not dead. Why was he unconscious then? We'll never know.
I think I think it was the shock of getting shot at such close range.
But he didn't get shot.
He got great.
He's not bloody at all. There's not even blood on his clothes.
Yeah, maybe he just got grazed then. I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he saves her, and then he has like the worst line in the history.
When we get out of here, I'm teaching you how to aim.
Yes.
Fuck off.
It's just so stupid. Like, what movie are you making? So that's the end of this. They get saved by a plane that he had radioed for earlier that we forgot to mention.
Yeah. It's not a good adaptation of this story.
No,
unfortunately.
No, and it's a bummer. It's like I said, Donald Pleasance, really good. Most of the actors in this are pretty strong. Like this should be no worse than a very good high level community theater production of this, and it just isn't. It's just not that good. Which is a bummer because I'm predisposed to like this. I love Donald Pleasance. I like Agatha Christie.
I'm also shocked that more Agatha Christie stuff doesn't get made.
Yeah, you'd think in this world of like constantly adapting stuff, especially, I wonder if we're going to get a bunch as her stuff becomes public domain.
Maybe. I think the only one that wouldn't would be Mousetrap because it's currently running. So I think the estate would fight that. Right.
But yeah, I'm with you. I don't understand. I think there's just less of an appetite for this kind of movie these days. I know we both like it very much, but I don't know.
But even you'd think Netflix would be like, yeah, we'll take a chance and make this just to see what happens.
Yeah.
They made Rebecca.
Right. They're not very expensive. Like, it just seems like you could do them very easily. You fill out the roster mostly with character actors. Like, you don't need a movie star to open a movie like this.
No.
I don't know. They're still doing Poirot movies, like the Branagh one's coming out, which...
Oh, yeah.
Very, very funny. Like, I forget who it is that they're hiding. That's
Army Hammer.
There it is. Yeah, the Cannibal Hammer is in it.
Actual cannibal Army Hammer.
Yeah. Well, I think it's actual want to be cannibal. I don't think there's any evidence he's eaten any flesh.
Farther than any kind of kink I've ever heard.
I'm just saying it is probably inappropriate to say that he has eaten human flesh until evidence shows up that he wants to eat it. Is a real thing for sure. That's not slander.
Yes. His level of want. I'm just saying his level of want.
Yeah,
per really his text messages is far farther than any other kink I've ever heard.
As I've said, if you get too rich, weird shit happens to your brain, and that's what it is. If you're too rich, you just get weird. So you gotta back people down a little. Anyway, there's no way you're recommending this bad movie.
No, it's a bummer.
And we've savaged it so much it would not be even fun to play canon because I think this is easily canon for both of us.
Canon.
Yeah. But yeah, fun conversation at least. Bad movie. Not worth your time. Yeah. Get yourself a solid flavor injector and pick a different Donald Pleasance film. Thank you so very much for watching. Jesus Christ. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on Facebook. You can find us at Dissect the 80s on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you there. Check out patreon.com/dissecting-the-80s. As we said at the top of the show, you can get all sorts of great bonus content and good stuff there. So check that out if you please. It's a great way to support the show. And another great way to do it for free is to tell 2 friends if you like the show. So tell 2 people about it and help spread the word out there. We haven't had a review in a while, so if you want to review the show, do that, and we read those on the air. If you do something other than iTunes, just send a screenshot to dissectingthe80s@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a movie I'm kind of excited to dig into. I'm hoping it's weird and wonderful. It's called Evil Speak, and it stars favorite of this podcast, Clint Howard, not Ron.
The actual
Howard.
favorite.
The good favorite. And you can find that on Shudder as well as a couple other places. So yeah, if you want to watch with us, that's how you can find it. Thank you so much again for listening. I have been Tripp Lano.
I will always be Andrew Lano.
Until next time.
Don't you forget about me.
Dissecting the 80s is a Chum Some of This production. Ow.